I'm not afraid to say abortion out loud. I am not here today to talk about choice. I am not here today to use flowery euphemisms or to share stories of dire cases or to talk of safe, legal, and rare. I'm here today to talk about abortion. It is my goal to strip abortion of its heavy weight, stigma, and shame. Stigma and shame forces us to be silent, and it erases abortion as a normal experience on the continuum of people's lives. Shame prevents us from having truly heartfelt conversations in our families, our communities, and even in our faith traditions. Shame sucks away at compassion and love, leaving loneliness and isolation in its wake. Shame forces this discussion from the personal to the political. The narrative surrounding abortion has always been one that ceded the language of the moral high ground to one side or the other, and what's left behind are slogans and emotions cast in black and white, pro-life and pro-choice, highly philosophical. The single story creates stereotypes, and the problem with stereotypes is not that they are untrue, but that they are incomplete. They make the one story become the only story. That's a quote from author and feminist Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. Here's a good example of how a single story is harmful. When we discuss abortion access, choice, and bodily autonomy, we often use gendered language. But pregnant people, people who need abortions, or people who are choosing to become parents or continue a pregnancy, that encompasses not just women, but trans men, genderqueer and gender nonconforming people. So much of our language specifies women and erases these people from the discussion. If I use language that specifies women, please know that I do not intend to erase trans and gender nonconforming people from this discussion. In most places, it's simply a matter of citing statistics or quotes that have oppressively excluded these people. The narrow fiction of pro-choice and pro-life, this philosophical debate that hasn't gotten us very far. We know that so many of us encounter the sacred, the mystery, and the uncertain on our reproductive journeys. I want to shape a new narrative, centering stories, lived experiences, complexity, and love. As noted writer and activist Adrienne Marie Brown said, we keep finding ourselves in external and internal debates over differences that distract us from our vision, which is that every person has agency over his, her, or their own body. It isn't about one choice. It's about a multitude of choices, all rooted in love and equity. So today, I'm here to talk about my work in abortion and equity, compassion, autonomy, dignity, resilience, and love. 3 years ago, it was midnight Eastern time. I was new to my board role with the Magnolia Fund, an abortion fund in Georgia. I was adjusting to the reality of just how great the need for abortion funding was in the Southeast. At the time, I was lying in my bed, my computer open to a live stream of the Texas legislature. I watched Wendy Davis in her pink sneakers as she was nearing the end of her 13-hour filibuster. I sat in my pajamas, cheering her on, begging her to keep it up, knowing that she had just one more hour to go to prevent harmful legislation from closing the majority of the clinics in her state. I clapped and shouted to the empty room, and I cried as the sea of activists in orange, both inside the chambers and out, yelled their hearts out, cheered and stomped, literally shaking the building to prevent the vote from happening. A fellow abortion funder would later describe this people's filibuster as the bright radiation of the movement's heartbeat. My heart was in Texas, and it sang. My heart knew that this was the case that could change things nationwide. I knew the world was watching as the people held the floor. What we were watching were young people queer people, people of color, undocumented people, trans people, fighting for what belonged to them, their bodies, their autonomy, and reproductive justice. I think of that when Debbie Wasserman Schultz says young women are complacent. I know that can't be further from the truth. Devastatingly, Rick Perry would force a special session to vote on the bill known as HB2, and it would pass. Clinics began to shut down across the state, unable to meet the unnecessarily stringent regulations. I watched as fellow abortion funds bent under strain as they struggled to fill the gaps. Organizations like Fund Texas Choice would start, paying for things like bus tickets for 4-hour rides, hotel rooms, and plane tickets for flights out of state. So let me say that again, flights out of state. It's perverse. I knew it was only a matter of time before we felt it here. As clinics closed throughout the Southeast, my organization found itself increasingly covering the needs of people traveling from 6 different states to Georgia. A year and a half after Fund Texas Choice was founded, I found myself on a conference call with their executive director. We discussed how to improve our funding of transportation, hotels, and brainstorming how to pay for plane tickets. We both knew the reality. Fast forward to 2015. It's 6 p.m. on a Tuesday evening, and it's my week to work the Magnolia Fund hotline. I make a phone call, and a stranger answers on the other line. She's unemployed, and she's supporting 2 children at home. She's worked hard to raise the money for her abortion, asking family and friends, and even draining her savings account. But in the time it took her to raise the money, she's found herself past the 20-week legal limit for abortions in Georgia. Her choices? She can fly to Colorado, New Mexico, or Maryland. She schedules an appointment in Albuquerque. The total cost of her abortion is $10,000. And that's a real number. Plus travel. We're a drop in the bucket. We cover what we can. A few other funds across the country can cover some, but she'll likely wind up with a loan that she'll have to repay. And this isn't a story about pity. It's a story about work and resilience and a system that has brutally failed so many people. Carrie Waters, director of Women Help Women International, said, "I could talk about women I've counseled that have been shot and stabbed by their partners, women who are facing devastating abnormalities, women who have been raped or are already struggling to feed themselves and their children. But there are also the women who need this because they will be the first in their family to go to college. Women who need this because they feel strongly about the kind of parents that they want to be and know that now is not the time. Abortion shouldn't be earned through suffering or tragedy. To earn an abortion, we owe no more than to be pregnant and need not to be." I hear so many stories, and each time they're similar. I have an appointment at a clinic on Thursday. It's 2 days from now. I still need $800, and I don't know what I'm going to do. I live in South Georgia. The closest clinic is 4 hours away, and I don't have a car. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm graduating with honors, and I'm enrolling at UGA next year. I don't know what I'm going to do. My job will fire me if they find out I took 2 days off work to have an abortion. I don't know what I'm going to do. These people are fighting upstream against a system that has been purposely designed for them to fail, a system that devises to sentence them to parenthood despite their best efforts. Most of them will make it to their appointment, one way or another. About a third of them I won't hear from again. And I cry a lot. My organization begins to develop protocols in case we talk with someone who's decided to attempt an abortion at home. We've already heard of it happening, and we know the reality. Some days it feels like climbing a glass wall. You go up and up and up, and despite all your best efforts, you slide down again. And this is the reality of abortion access, perhaps one that either side doesn't want to see, one that echoes long past slogans, chants, cheers, and marches. "We won't go back" isn't a slogan anymore. For millions of people, particularly poor people, people of color, rural people, undocumented people, Native and Indigenous people, pre-1973 is already a reality, and this patchwork of laws has led to a perverse safety net that is held together by grassroots activists. It truly is perverse work. A fellow activist I know described it as such. And yet she also described it as holy work. Life-changing, life-affirming holy work. Now, one side of the fight believes that they have the sole claim on holy work. People who spit vitriol in one breath and claim compassion and love in another. Who quote a Bible whose passages remind us of the goodness of the world and yet ignore those verses for fire and brimstone instead. Our power intimidates them, and they lash out, often violently. But theirs is the world of circled wagons and whispers, a world where pregnant people are to be pitied, not respected for their tremendous power and resiliency. That power makes them feel afraid. I have heard the fear in the protesters who told me my work at Planned Parenthood was of the devil, who wished out loud that I would die, who told me great suffering was in my future if I continued this work. No, the realm of holy work is not theirs. They do not hold a claim to my spirituality, and they cannot claim the moral high ground. Spirituality does not stand on the side professing to believe in life. Because don't we all believe in life? I believe in life in all its fullness and its beauty. I know holy work above all to be about love. I'm sure you all know the Bible verse, 1 Corinthians 13. It's a reading that's commonly reserved for weddings or other celebrations. It's a verse that gives light to the meaning that love is an action and not an emotion. If I speak in the tongues of men and of angels, but have not love, I am a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. And if I have prophetic powers and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have all faith so as to remove mountains, but have not love, I am nothing. The lines were originally meant as a rebuke of the church that was simply seeking to show off their faith, to pray loudly like a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal, stubborn in their righteousness, and leaving out love. And I'm sure we all know plenty of noisy gongs or clanging cymbals in our lives. I've seen more than a few myself on the sidewalks of clinics. So now faith, hope, and love abide, but the greatest of these is love. Agape, the highest, most transcendent form of love. Love in action, deep, holy love. Love that connects me to the experiences of millions of pregnant people and their sacred experiences of finding love, building a life, and choosing when and how to create their family. Love that admires and lifts up their resiliency. Love that understands that there is no such thing as compassion without respect and autonomy. Abortion access is holy work because it is a work of love in action. Love in action is what drives me to struggle to a world where this work is not transactional, but transformational. I seek not to fight, but to create and to develop a system that reflects the dignity, autonomy, and independence that we all deserve. And in developing that system, we cannot separate abortion from the other injustices in our society, because abortion and reproduction is wrapped up in an insidious web of oppressions. We cannot talk about abortion without talking about race or economic justice or trans rights or immigration justice. We live in a world of mass deportations, of the denial of basic humanity for LGBTQ people, of skyrocketing infant and maternal mortality for people of color, and even if they are born, no guarantees that they won't be shot dead in the street. And so out of love, I seek to create a space where abortion is fully woven into the fabric of the reality of our lives, and where we can make choices about our bodies in safe, healthy communities, free from oppression or violence. Safe, legal, and rare won't get us there, and neither will choice. I want you to do what Unitarian Universalists do best. I want you to stand on the side of love. I want you to go beyond choice, and I want you to say, I am unafraid of the shame and the stigma. You are not alone. You are loved. You are allowed to do what's best for you. I want you to say that is perverse for someone to travel hundreds of miles to access abortion care in a city that they have never visited. I want you to say that it is absurd for grassroots activists to patch together a safety net. I want you to put my organization out of work. My volunteer organization. I don't want you to scale the glass wall. I want you to smash it, and I want you to leave an open door in its place. And in that place of love, I also want you to seek to create a change in yourselves, because this work does not happen in a vacuum. We must do work to dismantle white supremacy that eats away at so many of us. While we dismantle external systems of oppression, let us dismantle the ones within ourselves as well. Love is what requires me to sit with my discomfort, to question and to seek. The holy is finding that tiny thread of my own shortcomings and privilege, picking at it, pulling it up and out of me like an exorcism, facing all of the difficulty and pain, and leaving love behind in its path. We must learn when to step up and to lead a charge, and when to get out of the way and let others speak their own truth. Bell Hooks said, "Beloved community is formed not by the eradication of difference, but by its affirmation, by each of us claiming the identities and cultural legacies that shape who we are and how we live in the world." Pro-choice won't get us there. The holy work of learning to step into one's power and stand toe-to-toe with all that oppresses and limits you and pull the energy to climb that glass wall again, that will. Finally, I come to last Monday morning. It's 10 a.m., and my Fitbit tells me that I had a giant spike in my heart rate. I've got SCOTUS blog up on my computer, and I'm watching intently. #waiting for Lyle. At 10:13, the decision came down. 5-3. My head swam. I didn't believe it to be real. A much-needed victory after 3 years of worry, fear, struggle, and feeling a very real impact on pregnant people's lives. A few people in this room can probably tell you how many times I cried that day. After 3 hard years over the course of 5 days, here's what happened. The Supreme Court struck down targeted regulations against abortion providers in Texas. They refused to hear efforts to reinstate similar laws in Mississippi and Wisconsin, and Alabama gave up trying to enforce similar laws. The Supreme Court also refused to hear a challenge to a Washington law requiring pharmacists to dispense contraception. New Hampshire restored funding to Planned Parenthood. Oakland, California, took up an ordinance that would stop crisis pregnancy centers from misleading people into thinking that they offer abortion care. An injunction was granted to stop a new Indiana law banning abortion in cases of fetal abnormality and requiring abortion patients to choose between burial or cremation of an aborted fetus or embryo. An injunction was granted to stop a Florida law that would defund Planned Parenthood and require the state to inspect 50% of patient records. The Center for Reproductive Rights filed suit to stop all 7 abortion laws that were passed this year in New Orleans, Louisiana. A judge tossed a lawsuit by the governor of Kentucky that claimed that the Louisville Planned Parenthood was performing illegal abortions. And last Thursday, Oklahoma reversed its decision to terminate Medicaid services contracts with Planned Parenthood. Don Lagans, executive vice president of the Planned Parenthood Action Fund, said, "No matter how long it takes, these laws will fall." Now I'll quote Dr. Willie Parker, an abortion provider and vocal person of faith, and one of my personal heroes. So what can we do? We can elevate the voices of women who seek and have had abortions, especially in states with laws designed to prevent women from choosing to have one. We can listen and learn about the work that needs to be done to help all women live lives of health and happiness. We can meaningfully engage the faith community to broaden the religious understanding of reproduction. As doctors, we can say loudly and clearly that abortion must be made accessible in all 50 states and advocate for laws that reduce barriers and stigma and expand access to care. And we can fight for change. That means redoubling our efforts across the country to end similar restrictions in other states that push abortion care out of reach for too many people. We also need Congress to do its part by passing laws that guarantee access to safe, legal abortion care and ensure health care coverage for all pregnant people that need it. Unless we act and continue to call for action, we will continue to see more and more laws across the country that hurt women and take away their right to make decisions regarding their own care. That's detrimental to women's health and undermines our shared values of dignity, self-determination, and opportunity for all. That's why, even as we celebrate the Texas ruling, we're busy getting to work to reopen clinics and fight other restrictive laws. The Supreme Court ruling is just one small step forward. The real work starts now. The real work is holy work. Octavia Butler said, "All that you touch, you change. All that you change changes you. The only lasting truth is change. God is change." And so blessed is the work of love. Blessed is the work of reality. Blessed is the work of complexity in all its beauty and pain. Blessed is messiness. Blessed is queerness. Blessed is seeking divinity in the struggle. And blessed is transformation. The spectrum of abortion access and the spectrum of our lives is not readable in black and white. The moral high ground is ours, and reclaiming it is long past due. As Senator Barbara Mikulski would say, keep giving them hell.